Welcome to another episode of Burning Questions. In this episode, we'll again be talking about competency. Joe, perhaps you could introduce yourself and the company.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Joe Hewitt. I'm the contracts director for fire stopping and boarding at TBL Fire Protection.
Good. Tell us about TBL. What sort of customers do you work for? Sorts of projects?
We a wide range from historic buildings, sort of retrofitting, brand new builds, housing, hospitals, warehouses. Generally, everything across the board: external cavity barriers, passive fire protection across the industry, really.
A true fire stopper.
Yes, yeah, you'd like to think so.
Excellent. So today we're discussing competency.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could just kick off by telling us what you think competency means.
So, yeah, it's a big question. For me, I think it depends at what stage of your sort of fire stopping career you're at and where your involvement is. As an installer, for me, competency would be the ability to read a drawing, a detail, recognising the required minutes. Is it a 60-minute wall? Is it a 30-minute wall? Being able to follow a detail. And then as you go, almost further up the ladder to when you get to design point, it really needs to be thought out because, you're selecting details. Ideally, if you can get the early engagement, you need that competency to know what works, what doesn't work. Yeah. So with that, again, like I say, it's a hard one. I think it depends at what stage you're involved in the construction. It depends how high that level. I think it does fluctuate what you need to know and what you don't need to know at certain levels.
Yeah. So I guess the key thing is that you need to know what you know, but also know what you don't know. And as you say, for your particular role,
yes,
you need to know what you are capable of doing.
So for myself, so for the lads on site, obviously, we'll do a detailed pack for them, and they'll work through that on the construction site. Then if they get to a point where there's something not within that detailed pack, that's where they know they have their limitations. They can't go no further. Yeah. So from that, they know that they're competent enough not just to install any detail. They'll forward it to ourselves, and then we'll get in touch with yourselves or other manufacturers to see their stance to ensure we are working to tested details.
Yeah, that's very good. So I guess the question is why is competency important? Yeah.
Again, from a wide for your client, your end user, I think it's really important they know that they're getting a top service and that you spent the time, the accreditation, and what you are doing is, it is the latest tested detail. It's all recorded properly. You've got the accreditation. I think it's really important. I think it's important more so that it needs to be emphasised maybe at that design point, because I think sometimes, especially maybe with cavity barriers or that sort of area, you get your red lines drawn dictating your compartmentation, and that's like, well, I'm out, that's me done. And then realistically, there's so much more to think about. Yeah. There's the internal facade, the external facade. Are they compatible? How do they work? So I think, again, I have to go back to it. It depends at what stage of your career or your involvement is. Yeah. But competency, it's really important for me.
Because ultimately, what we're talking about is life safety.
Massive, yeah.
And I think one of the challenges we have is that some people will see fire stopping products as products.
Yes.
But the reality is that they are a tested system with a very defined scope of application, and we need to be making sure they're being installed by people like yourselves in accordance with that tested scope. But your hands are tied to some degree, because you'll turn up on site and you're faced with a situation where you're being asked to fire stop it, but it's knowing whether the tested scope covers that application.
Fortunately, then that's when you come against timescales and costs, because obviously a lot of people still seem to think firebat is this magical material that will just can solve anything as long as it's in there. But again, obviously, I think more so from insurers' point of views, and obviously for our accreditation through FireAS, they expect us to be using the latest tested details. Yeah. So that's at our forefront. We'll always ensure that's what we're trying to do. But again, with education and competency, it's explaining that to your client, why we're changing it and why we're doing it, to understand. And obviously that has to be passed through then to M&E. Because, 2 years ago, we just put a collar on. Well, unfortunately, since then, 2 years ago, Quelfire have put something in the furnace and got a tested detail, and this is how we have to do it. Yeah. So it's continual education, I think. I don't think it's ever going to stop.
No, I totally agree. And I think it's a dangerous saying, isn't it? We've always done it this way.
Yes.
So being prepared to challenge perhaps what you have done in the past, I guess, everyone would admit they've probably done things in the past, but they did it with the best intentions at the time.
Yes.
The point is...
So historically, again, when there wasn't tested detail, it was an engineer's judgment. People more qualified than me did the assessment. And, obviously we have to reassure our clients historically, look, what we did do in the past, it is, certified, it's fine, you're insured, it's not going to change anything. But moving forward, once it's new tested detail, as a competent company and installers, we have to ensure we're installing the latest tested detail.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Yeah. So what do you think, what more can be done to support competency in the industry? As you say, you've got different tiers, you've got installers, you've got supervisors, you've got designers, there's a broad range of requirements and skills.
I think there's a lot of good courses out there. I think with the ASFP, obviously, you can go from level 1 up to however high I think you want to go, which is great. Obviously, there is an MVQ, you can get on-site assessed. For me in the industry, I think it should be more, there's so much detail now that it's, we've long gone from bat, fill hole, walk away. It's almost, we're talking millimeters in tolerances.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got to a point of almost engineering. So for just to be able to say, I just put bat in a hole, I think, it should be introduced by, whether it be the CITB or, really introduced into colleges. It's such an in-depth now, and you have to have so much knowledge. And if you really want to progress, I think that's the only way to get in early. I think that'd be good. Again, I think we spoke before we started the show, obviously, all manufacturers, their products are great, it's tested, they're vigorously tested in, a furnace, and we get all the accreditations, it's great. Who it gets sold to at the end and where they use it and how they use it is a different question. So it'd almost be, is it something that the manufacturers can support, that you have to have a certain accreditation, you have to prove that, if you're going to buy so much material of us, we'll have to do a site visit and inspect your work to back up, your accreditation. I think down the lines, there was talks of it. I did a sit down with the ASFP, and it was like the golden thread. I think the terminology they use, and it's really good, and it's, and it highlights that, because it's great, but there'd be nothing worse for you guys, I assume. You could sell a load of products, anyone, anyone can install it how they want, and you've got no say, and and then it's not detrimental to yourself, because obviously your products work if they're installed in accordance with your tested guidelines. But for us, it's heartbreaking when you go out there and you just, well, why has this happened, and how has this happened? So I think there should be something maybe more from manufacturers to not dictate who they sell to, but ensure it's going out to the market to the right people.
Yeah, sure.
Because obviously, if people can come in, and again, it's probably driven a bit by cost. If somebody could do this for a set amount, but because we have our accreditations, we ensure we're competent, and we train our lads, and we work closely with yourselves and ensure we're using the latest details, obviously the cost implications are different. No,
that's a really interesting point. Something we need to do about thinking about, for sure. But I guess the other take on that is the kind of top-down approach. So I suppose it begs the question is, who is allowing these non-accredited, lack of experience installers to actually carry out the work? Does there need to be more awareness with the building owners, the insurance companies, etc.?
It's massive. I'd spend a lot of time, going through your early engagement. Is it the white book?
The Quell Selector?
No. Your the early engagement one that was just released.
Oh, the white paper.
The white paper, yes. Yeah. So I've been brilliant, really brilliant. I've shared that with my clients to stress the importance of it, and they've really taken it on board to the point of, I think we've been caught out on a few jobs, and obviously there has been a cost implication. So they've took that on board, and obviously keen to learn, and that's what's great. And like I said, the hunger for it is brilliant, and they're spreading it through their M&E contractors. It's going right across from the top, from the directors, right down to installers, site agents. It's really, really good.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, I'm going to stress the early engagement part is brilliant. And like I say, it's only been the last 2 weeks where I did my own presentation for our client speaking about early engagement. Excellent. And at that point, as a business, they're changing how they design their packages. So when M&E is designed, fire stopping has to be in at that point. So they're going to collate us together really early on, to really get down to the details. What's the wall makeup? What's the floor makeup? What's our limitations? What space have we got? Can we use this detail? And iron all this out over paper. And before we even get out the ground.
No, it's definitely the way forward. It was going to be my next question was what positive change you're seeing, which I think you've alluded to.
Yes,
you're not just getting brought in at the end of the project
No.
now. It's, as you say, before you're even out of the ground.
Before even out of the ground, honestly, across the board, I think,
Excellent.
it is really good. And I think it's only more, just the more information we can provide our clients, why it's so important. And I think, obviously, the big drive would be a cost saving.
Yeah.
It is cost saving, because to do it wrong in the first place,
Yeah.
we all know trying to put it right later down, when ceiling grids are in,
Yeah.
it is an absolute nightmare, and the cost is there anyway. So for the money that it'd probably take that little bit more of early engagement and time, I think it would be tenfold what you'd have to spend if you didn't take the time to do your early engagement.
Yeah, there was some research done recently, certainly with regards to dry lining. I think they reckon that 17% of the cost of dry lining is rework,
Yeah.
which, again, I would imagine some of that rework would be because people like yourselves are turning up on site, letterboxes are not built correctly, they're not big enough, or they're damaged, etc. So there's definitely financial savings to be had from early engagement and getting you on board earlier, but also a lot of other benefits as well. Less stress,
less stress
friction.
again. And again, it's nothing better. Just I started as an installer, as a subcontractor. I then got employed and then become team leader, supervisor, contracts manager, now the director. So for my growth, been through it. So I've seen all stages. So what we present the lads now, obviously it's very technical.
Yeah.
It's all on a tablet. They've got the job pack. The drawings are on there. They've got every detail they need to work to. We put our library of detail. So if there isn't something that they need to find, and they've got that library to hand, and they can literally scroll through and find it.
Excellent.
It's really good.
So I think one of the terms we use internally is the thought of de-skilling and systematising, which sounds like that's the approach you're taking.
It's great because, like I say, you have that set up. You're still set out early with your main contractor.
Yeah.
M&E are aware of their responsibilities. The dry liners are aware of their responsibilities. Our lads as installers are aware of their responsibilities, because it is, we interact with every trade.
Of course you do, yeah.
Every trade, and if they are penetrating firewalls, they have an onus of what it is to let us know. So again, going back to the early engagement, which is really helping us out, because it's M&E, it's dragging M&E along, not dragging them, maybe not but educating them a little bit out of their normal scope. Because again, it is majority of the work that goes through firewalls is M&E. So I think working closely with them guys is really important.
Yeah. So in terms of challenges you're facing still in the industry, that lack of understanding from other trades?
A lack of understanding from other trades, maybe the lack of forgetting the hole cutter, so they use the hammer. There is always that. I think it is. It's just that early engagement, and it is massive, and it is education and an understanding. And I think it's got to be driven a little bit from the main contractor, that all trades have a responsibility, especially when it comes to penetrating through firewalls. Yeah. It's really important. And even so, how the wall itself is constructed, we can be really scrutinised by building control, independent inspectors, our own fire risk accreditation or other accreditors that are out there over a small hole, and is it tested? Can you provide all the test evidence? Can you do it? When really, the wall is the main fire, and there's no sort of inspection as such. So I think, again, it all needs to be brought together as an understanding. It's not just your 40mm mastic seal that's going to stop the fire if the wall's not up to scratch. So I think that has to be brought into, again, education. Education is key.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true what you say. The service penetration seal is only ever as good as the substrate, the wall or the floor. So I think that is a valid challenge in the industry, is seeing that all these things work together holistically as a full tested system. We've seen some positive changes towards sort of a lot more focus and emphasis on the fire stopping, but as you say, the spatial coordination of the M&E services, the construction of the walls and the floors is just as important. It all works together.
Massive.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep banging the drum with our education.
Yeah, I think, again, it is the only way forward. I think every day is a learning day, and what's great for myself is, obviously, for all our different clients, I'm getting challenged for different details all the time. So, we're chasing different details, speaking with yourselves, other manufacturers. Have we got test data for this? Have we got anything for this? Is this suitable? Yeah. So every day is a learning day. And like I say, our clients are really, there is a hunger out there, because, they want to provide a safe building at the end of the day and hand it to their client. So they need to trust us.
Yeah.
And as well then, so like say, it's just pushing that emphasis against, like say, all trades coming together and understanding how important it is when it comes to firewalls and compartmentation and how and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what you as a company are doing to ensure that you kind of keep ahead of legislation changes and ensure you're at the top end of your competency?
Again, working very closely with manufacturers like yourselves, obviously are very useful. Providing us with your latest tested details. Your YouTube channel is very good. We get a lot of use out of that, and it's great because they're only short snippets, so it keeps the lads' attention. We'll spread them through, so that's really good. I deal a lot with the ASFP. We tend to go to some of their meetings, keeping up to date with webinars. I think watching previous videos, I think everyone sort of touches, it's continual learning.
Yeah.
It's education, it's taking the time out of you, not so much just you can't be in your working day. It is a little bit of homework if you would, but depending where your passion lies, for me, it's there. So I'm quite, LinkedIn's great. Yeah. Again, working closely with you guys, with your manufacturers, and ensuring, like I say, to stay ahead that we are using the latest tested details.
Yeah.
It's really important to us.
Yeah.
And training our guys as much as we can, speaking with other manufacturers, getting you guys into to our warehouse to show your products how they should be used, and ensuring that education is always being pushed forward.
Yeah, no, that's good. Taking the time, investment. See it as an investment.
Yes, and it's massive, and it pays dividend. Because it's only downfall for us as a company. So as I said previously, we try and get the lads set up on their job pack, so they have all their details tested. So it's all prior for them to get there. Yeah. So they know what's coming up, they know what they've got to do. So the education's there, so they always know to check the detail. What am I working to this job? What's the next job? Yeah,
that's good. Excellent. Good. So final question, I think, was when something is outside of your competence, where do you go for advice?
So I think sometimes ambition outweighs ability. You want to be able to help everyone and give them a solution, but unfortunately, we all have our limitations and we have to know. And obviously, so for us, generally, like say, we'll try very much early engagement to procure the detail that we know is suitable for the project. If we do then come against it, it's direct to you guys, back to you guys, or the selected manufacturer we are using. Obviously, there is other competitors out there, but
sure.
It's going back to the manufacturer because, again, we need a tested detail.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know sometimes it's not out there and we have to refer to an engineer's judgment, which, is understandable, but I think it's out there. But as long as you follow the procedures and you're letting your own client know, building controller aware, it's on your final report, it's registered, you've got backing from a independent fire engineer, so there is ways around it. But
yeah, absolutely. And I guess the key thing is, as we said earlier, is just knowing your limitations, knowing that something is outside of the scope, and as you say, going through the due process. And
that's it, it's a process again, and I think it's going back to it, that process can be done very early on, given so it's not then going to affect the jobs, the programming of the job, and there's not going to be no delays. You're not holding up, we can't go any further because we're still waiting for an answer for fire protection. If that early engagement is taken care of at that right stage, you've got so much time then to get it answered, and to really try and maybe find it. Whether you guys are so good, it might be put in a furnace. If we're that far ahead, and you've got the time, and it's a regular question and it's a regular problem, but yeah, definitely 100%. It's you guys really help us out. It's very appreciative.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I know. You've been very kind words in terms of how we support you. We're certainly very passionate here too about trying to educate those that are on the front end, but also, as I say, those that are a bit further up the chain that probably look at programs and the cost more. Trying to educate them as to the seriousness of what they're actually procuring and what they're responsible for. So I think there's still a bit of work to do there with improving the competency throughout the whole supply chain. But yeah, some positive signs happening.
Yeah, very positive.
If there's anything else that we do to support you that you could share with our audience in terms of helping competency, then
I think
but
if you are at that early stage and you've got early engagement, Quelfire's website is so useful. It's very easy to use. It's a drop-down selection, and it will give you all the latest tested details. It's really good. The guys in technical, you're not really waiting more than a day for a response, and it's honestly, the support network is brilliant, and as a company we really appreciate it.
Excellent. I think that's a really valid point, and I think I often have conversations with architects and designers, and they sort of say, well, we haven't gone into this level of detail before doing this level of design. We normally just leave it to the fire stopper. And you sort of say, well, why don't you want to get into that level of detail? And it's like, well, we don't understand it. Okay, well, that's a good thing they're saying they don't understand it. But I think there's also a reluctance to reach out to manufacturers like ourselves because they're worried they're not going to get the support they want, or they won't get it in a timely manner. But I'd like to think from a Quelfire perspective, we're different.
Very different.
We do
I
respond.
think there's a project we use, is it Bloor Homes?
Yeah.
And I think Bloor Homes, they come to you direct, and they provided us with the detail from Quelfire. So, you know, that's great. And as a company, you know that they've gone to that effort.
Yeah.
Obviously, maybe a little bit easier because it's repetition throughout. So, you know, other projects can change all the time, but I think you guys, I still think, again, you'd be there to help in any way you could.
Yeah.
So from a main contractor point of view, you know, getting early engagement for me.
Yeah. Got the message.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. It's been really insightful, and appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts on competency in this final episode of Burning Questions. So once again, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.